This morning's video is a subscriber request that regards the pros and cons of inbreeding. But to do that, I will also touch the other types of breeding in this topic. So I will also touch upon outcrossing, scatter breeding, and line breeding next to inbreeding. So first of all, some definitions. Inbreeding is breeding back on one specific dog, and doing that in quite an intense way. So the relationship with line breeding is that inbreeding is a lot more intense on one specific dog, especially sometimes several specific dogs, but mostly especially one. I will give some examples of inbreeding as compared to line breeding. And inbreeding could be if you have a father crossed with a mother, of course, that results in a daughter, and then you breed back that daughter to the father again. The resulting pups are then 75% the father, and you are inbreeding upon the father. An example of looser inbreeding that is more towards line breeding is that you have the same combination, father here mother, that results in a daughter, and then you cross it with another dog that results in a granddaughter, and then the granddaughter is again combined with that original father, so the granddaughter is combined with the grandfather, and that is more of a line breeding inbreeding, or an inbreeding that is less strict. It depends a little bit on your definition. And why is that so? Because also in line breeding you have an inbreeding coefficient. So an inbreeding coefficient will tell you something about the genetic diversity. So the higher they are, the less genetic diversity. And this is in general a bad thing. But there are some pros attached, of course, as well. So being in general a bad thing is because you are losing, nice as Jacob's ladders in the sky, you're losing genetic diversity. And if you have nothing to add to that, normally a dog breed would deter. And why are there some benefits involved also with inbreeding? Well, if you're inbreeding upon an exceptional individual, you will get more of that exceptional individual's traits. So for example, if that exceptional individual is very fast and you're inbreeding on that fast individual, you're likely to get also very fast pups out of that, perhaps even faster, because by inbreeding you can also increase the chance that those good genes find each other and also click in some way. So in the short sentence, what does inbreeding bring? It brings you a lot more stability in the result. Another thing is that lately inbreeding is sneered upon because they see a lot of troubles in show dogs, or they think that their purebred show dog is a lot better than that father-daughter combination, but they might be very wrong. And why is that? Because if you have a show dog, normally those show dogs have not been tested to be worth it instead of just looking nice. Another thing is that almost all show dogs are the result of inbreeding to a high degree. For example, you have some breeds that are approaching 85% inbreeding coefficient. That is utterly insane. If you would have like 12 times subsequent after each other inbreeding of the father to the daughter and then etc. So the granddaughter of that again to the father etc. Then you would still have a lot less than 85% that you see in some dog breeds. And an example of those dog breeds that have an insane high inbreeding are Lundehund. You can look that up. So that's giving you some background. So a father-daughter would you only be giving you an inbreeding coefficient of like 25%. And it's still a lot higher than you would like, but it's nowhere near that 85%, and that's 11 or 12 generations, as I mentioned, will give you like 50 or 55% coefficient of inbreeding. So it's a little bit, we call that hypocrite if you think that your dog is so much better. That's one. And the other thing is, if that father was an exceptional animal or is an exceptional animal, you still have the benefits of an exceptional animal that you don't have in that normal show dog that's already higher inbreeding altogether. The nice puppies, huh? Beautiful, beautiful puppies. Love them. Very tender. Then there's something else, and that is inbreeding is next to, in the show breeding world, was also in show breeding they use the inbreeding to refine them, as they say. Not refining, it's just exaggerating some traits that they have to divide them from other dogs that are related. For example, a flatter face in the English Bulldog as compared to the Staffordshire Bull Terrier to an enormous degree. If you look at the old English Bulldogs, they look a lot more than like the current Staffordshire Bull Terriers. Same with the Masino Napolitano. The Masino Napolitano of the old days looked a lot more like the Cane Corso of today. So it gives you some insight. And the Cane Corso of the past looked a lot more like a bull lurcher or a massive greyhound cross. But that being said, there are some things that you will also get, and that is next to the benefits you can gain from inbreeding, so more reliable and higher chance of some exceptional traits if you're inbreeding to an exceptional dog, that you also get drawbacks such as inbreeding depression. So what is that? Inbreeding depression is the result of high inbreeding, so to say, and then you get, for example, less long-lived dogs. You can also get dogs that are not that fertile, that they have problems to get normal size litters, etc., or limited sperm count. And already in the first father-daughter cross, you can diminish a little bit of the age. It also depends on the health of the dog you're inbreeding to, of course. If that is an exceptional health, for example, if the average of the breed is 12 years without inbreeding, and you have a dog that lives to 18 in a good health, and you're inbreeding on that dog, of course you can still get a very good longevity prospects out of that. So that can also give you an indication. So the opposite of inbreeding would be scatter breeding, so just breeding all those dogs together. And also a lot of times people think this is the best because those mutts, so to say, you can also have a mutt in a specific breed because it doesn't have consistency. You just breed it all over the place have a lot more genetic diversity and therefore could be better in living a long age, etc. And if you're just there for a house dog without a performance need, this can be a good bet, huh? But there are also drawbacks to that because the consistency will also diminish and you don't know exactly what you're getting, especially if multiple breeds are involved all the time. So what's the benefit of line breeding? You get a lot of the benefits of inbreeding, but because you do this in a looser way, so to say, you just breed on the line of the dogs or the parent of that dog. You can also involve those. Then you have a lot less pheasant on that the bigger bulb. Now this goes down. You have a lot of the benefits without the drawbacks to the same degree. So of course it will be a little bit harder to have the consistency that you could easily get with inbreeding, but also you have the benefit that you don't have to cross. There the pheasant is. See? In the middle of the screen. A nice big pheasant, huh? See him running? Just wanted to show this. He's now a little bit reluctant, but you have a lot of the benefits without the drawbacks to the same degree. So what you are getting is a line, and sometimes the parents of the exceptional animal are better than the exceptional animal itself, because they were able to produce an exceptional animal, whereas the exceptional animal, you don't know for sure if they can produce the same. And by adding these multiple layers of genetic diversity, but still along the sides of that specific line, you will have a lot of the benefits, namely the consistency will be high, the genetic diversity will be higher than inbreeding, so also a lot less inbreeding depression. That being said, even carefully selected lines are often in need of an out, and that will also introduce another aspect of breeding, being the outcross. So what does an out mean? So every time you breed in the line, it is an in, being inbreeding or just staying within the line. Both have the in it. And then if you take an outcross to a different line that is also very consistent, for example, and could be an inbreeding result of that different line, could be within the same species, of course, then you can have new blood added and still keep the consistency. And that's a great benefit, because you will have all the benefits of this line breeding, inbreeding program that gives you the consistency. But when there are some drawbacks, for example inbreeding depression, that are halting your line, or you're lacking some strength or other things, then the outcross to a dog or a line that doesn't have that drawbacks that much, or has a nice genetic click as been proven in the past, could give you that hybrid figure again. So you get new genes introduced. The hybrid figure oftentimes produce exceptional animals in the first generation. Therefore I also told you, it's not that much an exceptional animal will also produce exceptional animals. It could be that their parents are the better way to go. And after this outcross, this F1 outcross between these two inbred lines, then they go in again, so into one of the parent lines. So for example, you have line A, you outcross to line B, and the result, the AB, you cross into A again. So then you have 75% A line and just 25% of the B line, and you can have multiple generations crossing it back into the A line again without big inbreeding depression. And that gives you a big benefit as a breeder, of course. Outcrossing will oftentimes result in exceptional animals, but if you're not breeding them into one of the parent lines again and would outcross again to another line that's not related, you will be scatter breeding after a while, and you will lose consistency in performance as well. It doesn't mean that those dogs cannot live a nice long life and could be good pets, but as a performance dog enthusiast, this will be a little bit harder on yourself. So that also brings you probably at the point, what would I advise? I would advise exactly where I ended off with, to have a line that produces the dogs that are closest to what you want, in a performance sense. And if you have those, look for a good outcross, so when the time comes that you can go out. There's another thing, for example in working terriers, the out can also be a completely different breed. So for example, sometimes Patterdale terriers have an out towards the Lakeland terrier, towards the Border terrier, or towards, for example, a Staffordshire Bull terrier, if they are lacking strength or lacking size, because also inbreeding depression very often brings down the size again. So if you have an outcross potential which will increase the size, this can be beneficial, because one of the factors, if that is of relevance to your specific breeding program, could be that after a while the size is declining a lot, and if you have a certain type of dogs that needs a big size, for example a man stopper type of dog or a hawk dog, a catch dog type, then it would be nice that you in the outcross will get a little bit bigger dogs than the dogs that you want to end up with. And if you then are inbreeding again or line breeding again, and I prefer line breeding because the factors that I told you, then you can do this for quite a while before you need another out due to size restrictions by line breeding too much. So I hope this video was insightful and also answered the question of the subscriber or as Sambor. Have a great day. Today we are going to talk about pedigree and purity in dogs, and then the show dogs, but also the performance working dogs. Because there's in my opinion, a misconception, to say it briefly, that if you don't have a show type of dog, but more of a performance type of dog, and you prefer performance over form, that you don't have standards, therefore also are not interested in pedigrees or purity of a dog. And I say misconception because in my opinion this is not true, and even more to the point, I think it is even more important, but it's only a little bit different. And why is that? For example, if you have a dog that has a different form, performs very well, and more importantly also inherits its traits to its offspring, you have a gem in your hand. Because for a dog to perform in a show ring, you only need to look pretty, whereas a dog that needs to perform as a working dog, you need a dog that has great cardiovascular system, more importantly an athletic body, great endurance, strength, and then the things in the mind that you cannot see, such as bravery, determination, courage, grit, and those things are very hard to contain, especially if you have a characteristic that are far off from a natural type of canine, such as the wolf. So for example, a wolf, when it gets hurt, it wants to discontinue and live another day, whereas for example a terrier a gripping type of terrier will try to finish the job regardless and stay until duck regardless of the damage it takes. You can imagine that is something in the mind that you cannot see, that you can only keep if you select for it and you keep good records. I'm not saying that you can have a very good complete outcross, but very often those complete outcrosses don't deliver it in the genetic department to inherit it to the next generation. You have to go back again into the line to make sure. So what they do is they purify their dogs on base of performance, but they are not limited, of course, to a certain line, certain breed, a certain look. They are only limited to the performance. But what would you rather have to describe a breed? A breed that looks a certain way, or a breed that can perform a certain way? There's, for example, the name terrier, which implies a dog that goes to ground. If you have a dog that has the look of a terrier but cannot go to ground or doesn't have the mental attributes or the physical attributes to do so, what do you have? Something hollow. Instead, if you have a dog that is able to go to ground but looks a little bit different, you still have the performance and the iteration of the normal application of this word. So that's one, and in order to do so they keep records of very well performing animals because they want to have better performance in the next generation, or keep the performance of an exceptional animal by line breeding to it. So that's very important to a performance enthusiast, a lot more important than that of a show enthusiast, albeit sometimes a show enthusiast wants to win all the prizes, of course, as well, and more money can be involved, sure. Because especially those show versions, once they have a champion in the show ring, they will often milk it for its credits and then spread those winning chances for a payment, of course. This can also be a part of the working community. Once a dog has proven itself, oftentimes they are retired for work, so that they, especially if they have enormously dangerous work to do, in order to make sure that they are not lost and they are not dying in the harness, in the armor, so to say. It's a Dutch expression. They are not dying doing their job, but instead are able to pass their traits to the next generation again. So that's very important. And then if you look at the purity, I do agree that most show breeds are extreme exaggerations, and oftentimes they are developed by lots of line and inbreeding on those champions every time, as I mentioned. So the genetic diversity and thereby the purity, as some people might say it, would be higher, but in this case it's purity combined with a lot of genetic defects, whereas there are performance lines of bull and terriers that are, in my opinion, at least as pure, a lot more pure, I would say, but they are purified on performance elements. So as I mentioned, it's very hard to get traits to go on despite all adversity, but by line breeding and sometimes also a little bit of inbreeding, they are able to have higher consistency in the next litters. And what they then do, when they get some inbreeding depression, they go for an out again from another line that is enormously tight line bred very often, and could add to the pool again. And also very often they already know that these two lines have a good click and can supplement each other very well, and then they are brought back in the lines and purified on the line again. So, for the example of the American Pit Bull Terrier, very often those outs are just other lines of American Pit Bull Terrier. For the working Fel Terrier, those outs are often another breed. So, for example, within the Fel Terrier family, so for example, a Patterdale with a Lakeland Terrier, or a Border Terrier, or a German Hunting Terrier, or something along those lines. But they can also be bred within the breed. So for example, this little guy is a combination of two Patterdale lines. On the top he's boot, and on the bottom he's cloth bred. So two very renowned Patterdale lines are now combined in this first generation again. So in my opinion, purity, especially if you take into consideration performance and also consistency, can be a lot higher in working breeds, especially in the mindset that they have. Well, I hope this was insightful. Have a great day. Dog on a leash is my almost 2-year-old Patterdale Terrier Estacado. Have a great day. In this video we will discuss, is it possible to keep a short-coated dog such as this, Patterdale on the leash, or for example another Bull Terrier, Staffordshire Bull Terrier, American Staffordshire Terrier, American Pit Bull Terrier, Irish Staffordshire Bull Terrier, or the likes, in a cold climate, and what to do. First, to start off, of course you can do this, but it also depends on what you want. There's a reason that this big coated, heavy coated dogs exist also from a performance setting. But it is because that heavy coat protects them from the elements. So if you want to keep your dog outside and it's a cold climate, this dog is not in his element, of course, with a short coat. But still it can be done. There are even pit bull farms up to Russia that keep their dogs outside, but they have to provide weather protection. So that will mean that the dog has a place, a residence, where it can go inside once it gets too cold, to protect it from the snow, the cold and the rain. But please keep in mind, if there are longer durations of this cold conditions, or extreme cold even, the dog will be inside a lot. And in this case it will be inside its doghouse. So it won't have a lot of benefits of being outside. So the only reason should be that you have many a dog and you want to keep them on your own facilities. The other thing is, some people even have them on the chain and then provide a dog house, but that is a lot less beneficial on average. Why? Because the dog house is then the only thing where the dog can live. Normally there's not a coverage, as you often see in kennels. But also when a dog is outside its dog house, it still can be covered from rain, snow, and oftentimes also a lot of wind. So it still has some benefit that it can have a little bit of walking space. Because also oftentimes dogs in kennels don't get walked, they just do their thing, and the excrements are then collected. But in my opinion, to state it very frankly, I don't think it's good to keep short-coated dogs in a very cold climate. And you could, of course, could also keep your dogs on your terrain, and that they are able to walk around and also go into their own dog pen when needed. This is more of a protection dog type of task. I don't know if the Bull Terrier is that type of dog, but could be. Sometimes people also keep the dogs outside to protect against, for example, predators, but they are better dogs for that purpose, especially in cold climates, in my opinion. Another thing, especially if it's very cold, the smaller the dog, so for example Patterdale is a lot smaller than Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and Staffordshire Bull Terrier is already a lot smaller than American Staffordshire Terrier, the easier they will lose the heat, and in this case it's a bad thing. So if you look at animals, and if the same species lives in a warmer climate or in a medium climate and a cold climate, you will see that those that are living in a cold climate are bigger than those that live in a hot or medium climate. And there's a reason for this, because if you are bigger, the relative surface of the body is smaller than when you are, as compared to the kilograms of weight that you carry, than when you are smaller. Then the surface, the relative surface is a lot bigger compared to the relative weight that you have. So this will also mean that it will be easier for a smaller animal to lose heat. Therefore, for example, in desert you find very small subspecies, whereas in the colder climates you can find very big subspecies. That gives them a lot more isolation and therefore better heat management, and that's of particular importance when you're living in a cold climate. So even a dog like the Patterdale, that's other than the other examples that I mentioned, comes in 3 coats. So this is the smooth coated variety. Then you have a broken coated variety that offers a little bit more also resistance to cold, but just a tad. And you have the long haired variety that offers quite a rich and large and also lengthy coat, and that still offers additional protection. But it's not only the top coat that matters, it's also the undercoat. And Patterdale Terriers normally don't have a lot of undercoat. It could be that the long-haired variety has a little bit different undercoat, so a lot more woolly, and that woolly undercoat, that is a lot of the protection. But regardless of that, even the long-haired Patterdales will very often have troubles in heat management as compared, for example, to an American Staffordshire Terrier, because of simple physics, that they are relatively small. So that should also be said. Then there's another option, that you keep your dogs inside with you, and then there's a very good option to keep a Bull Terrier, a smooth coated variety, especially in a cold climate, because the dog will just be like humans. We are also very short coated, as you can see, but you can still manage for this because you can manipulate the heat of your own residence, and then everything is fine. And still, those dogs will also, don't get me wrong, enjoy the snow and enjoy the cold. They will, but there's a difference when they have their own warm residence, and when you keep them outside all the time and they just have to deal with the cold all the time, and also the heat management. If you do keep your dogs outside, also think about that they very often will need more food to keep the temperature at a steady level, because that also costs a lot of energy to have this heat management in an okay state. So that's something I wanted to talk to you about this morning. This is also a subscriber request that was interested in this specific topic. Look at this beautiful poppies. Hope this helps. Have a great day.